All right, here we go. I'm very excited to be here with you today and start this conversation about AI ready leadership. What executives must learn or unlearn in 2026. And today with me, I have two amazing guests. And look, first of all, this is a live stream. It's a collaboration of like thought leaders in AI, and we're just a small part of it. We have more people, but we are an AI leaders compass, trying to help leaders use AI with intention, consciously, and like without any biases. So today with me, Felicia Butcher, who is a computer scientist with an MBA in strategy and management, bringing more than 10 years of machine learning expertise across biotech and healthcare, and contributing to the development of the European AI Act. And also with us here today is Yuri Mariotti with 8 years of direct experience in this sector. Yuri is one of the leading AI figures in Italy, and thanks to his strategic expertise, he minimizes the risk in AI projects while maximizing return for the future. So I'm very excited to be here with you today, guys. And well, let's talk about AI ready leaders. My first question, Felicia, is to you. And well, since I am a leadership coach, I'm very interested in how leaders can implement AI. So, which leadership mindset is secretly sabotaging AI project?
So, in my opinion, the most or one of the most damaging beliefs is that AI is like a technical tool, technical upgrade, something you can delegate to IT, plug in and trust. Because in reality, AI is a leadership responsibility that has impacts directly on society. So, when executives treat AI as a neutral tool rather than a socio-technical system, things can go wrong. And um, I want to bring two examples to the table, which you might be familiar with. One was the famous Dutch childcare scandal. So there were thousands of families that were wrongly labeled as fraud risks over the years of 2005 to 2019. Many went bankrupt, and an entire government resigned. And here, again, the problem wasn't the algorithm, it was the leaders treating automated scoring as objective truth, ignored appeals, ignored human rights, and it created a system where no one was accountable for correcting injustice. Um, and um, and another example in healthcare, so a high risk domain in the US, where they took a commercial prediction algorithm that systematically under-referred Black patients for extra care. And the issue again wasn't the model or the math, it was that the leadership outsourced the decision to a vendor and accepted future healthcare costs as a proxy for health need without questioning the ethics behind it. So once the researchers reframed the target to reflect the actual illness burden, the racial bias dropped significantly. And here again, you can see that it's a pure governance failure, and it's not a model failure. So um, in that example, if we change what we optimize for the health need and not the costs, we built fairness checks into the whole life cycle and put real governance and accountability around the algorithm, and we don't just trust the vendor, um, a blind box. We can actually I mean, this is what leaders, this is what executives should do. And I think in 2025 you don't get to say we didn't know, because there are fairness metrics around. Bias mitigation methods are or should become standard tools, and you can't just not use them, especially in high stakes healthcare, because this is a leadership choice. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, thanks for those examples, Felicia. I mean, this is just very vivid examples of it. You should never delegate a decision to AI, if it, even to a vendor, and if it's your decision, it's a high stake. It should always stay with the leader. And Yuri, based on your practice, like what do you see as the biggest leadership mindset that can derail leaders?
Yeah, I wanted to add to Felicia that I also remember the Compass software that was given to the judges in the United States, and that also exacerbated the growth, the biases in the data that was used to train them. So even though the judges were still accountable for their choices, for their judgment, at the end of the day, they were increasingly giving more power to the AI, accepting what the outcome of its judgment was, instead of relying more on their own. So my response to your question is the fact that if we watch it on the ethical side, this is for sure something that we really need to take care. Uh, but on the implementation side, if you want, I see that there is a strong disincentive inside companies to adopt AI, because once they understand, and they don't always do, that there is going to be a power shift. There is going to be some responsibility that is going to be taken away in some cases, and in others, it is more responsibility that is going to be given. The talks and the discussions start to become much more complicated. And this mindset, again, if we are talking about leadership as the CEO, of course, it's not a real issue. But if we are talking about the entire board, here becomes a real issue, because people really don't see it just usually see it just as, making things easier, improving economics. And of course this can be a case, but as we already saw with Felicia, it also increases some kind of responsibility. It also increases some kind of risks, and leaders really need to understand that AI is not just another tool. It's something that radically changes the dynamics of many operations inside businesses, and this needs to be profoundly understood. It's not just some knowledge and some information you need to have, but to really take responsibility at the end of the day, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Complicating your enrollment and your delivery with tests, with the benchmarks, with continuous testing, and seeing to oversee the results. This complicates things, but at the end of the day, it's what really makes the difference in best performing AI models and best performing AI solutions, even in generative AI as well, not only in machine learning.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I do agree. I love what you said about AI influencing organizational dynamics, because like it's not just another tool. It's kind of a substitute for the mind itself. And when people talk to AI, they kind of think,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll ask a question. It has mind. It has some conscious. It can give me complex outputs. I'll have a conversation without even thinking. That's not an encyclopedia. I mean, you're not getting truth out of that. You're getting some
Yes.
probability. Be mindful about that and kind of not letting it lead you into the wrong decision, and bias is critical.
Yes, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for what you decide, and people really need to be reminded of that, because in some cases it looks like uh, AI said that, so in some way I'm less responsible. No, you're even more, maybe, because the impact is going to be bigger, right?
Yeah. So, like, since you say it requires different approach, so what are the capabilities that leaders need to build in the upcoming 2026 to be responsible users or implementers or leaders in AI?
Yeah, I think that I see two main things. One is the risk assessment, that is more. I think it's more complicated, because there are more things that can go wrong with AI than previously anticipated. And there are more ways to hijack the systems, so people can be bad actors and really do harm, maybe your clients as well, even not just the companies. And this can really go south pretty fast. So companies really need to assess the risks of AI implementation, of the solutions that they receive, the proposals inside of the company. They really need to do that. But at the same time, they really need to become way faster in decision making, because I mean, uh, AI is going to be is developing weekly, right? Every week we have news. Every week we have new tools, new solutions, new way of doing things, new use cases, and companies are reviewing, in the best case scenario, their strategy every 3 months, right? Every quarter. So this gap is so big and is accumulating quarter after quarter. So today, 3 years in the making, right, after generative AI, many companies still don't have any idea of what generative AI even is. And the ones that did the training are still there deciding what is their main AI provider, what is the use case that they need to work on. So if it's cautious, if it's just like a cautious approach, I understand waiting some months from the first releases, right? I understand for bigger companies needing to see if there are benchmarks and other big companies that did well and they can take inspiration from. But 3 years, I mean, uh, it looks like there is really something broken in the way of running decision and taking decisions in companies, because they can really not sustain the velocity of the startup ecosystem that is really different, and they are improving and growing really fast. And it's not just the AI bubble and the economics behind it, it's really the decision making and the ability to develop software and to deploy new features and to reach new customers and to upgrade the strategy. This is the real difference. And
Thank
of
you.
course, smaller companies are going to be faster. This is inevitable. But at the same time, bigger companies really need to change approach. And
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Mm,
And Felicia, like from your
maybe-
experience, like I'm really curious about like you like contributing to the European AI Act. Anything like you can share with us about new
Yeah.
capabilities?
Maybe adding to that, so what Yuri said, yeah, true. The technology is moving so rapidly. It's really an exponential growth or development that we see. And with it, I think it's also important to have an adaptive governance approach. So we executive should build systems that evolve with data and also the regulation. I mean, the European AI Act, as soon as it came out, it was already outdated, and I think we should have an adaptive approach also to that, as new data, new architecture, new technology is evolving, and this is just lived reality. We need to have an adaptive governance approach also. I totally agree with the ethical reasoning and the risk assessing, risk framing, and this is also where governance helps us to or should um, get companies to assess this risk internally, especially in high risk domains, what the European AI Act is touching upon. I think two or one more thing is, I mean, for executives, I mean, they don't need to have a technical background necessarily, or know how to code. But I think what's really key, and this also showed the two examples I mentioned in the beginning, is cross-functional collaboration. So when and this was also analyzed later in the Dutch benefit system, they built it in silos. So policymakers, technologists, and caseworkers, they barely spoke with each other, and this is still something you see in big companies nowadays. And also in healthcare, um, clinicians are often not meaningfully involved in reviewing a model's fairness, and we for AI, it's important that really the different stakeholders, so product, compliance, legal, and domain experts, sit at the table, just like when we developed the standards for the European AI Act. It's not just technical experts sitting there, but also legal ethicists. So really, the different dimensions coming together, and I think what is important, while executives don't need to have a technical background, they need to be able to ask the right questions. So, um, in the case of the healthcare model, they should ask questions like, I don't know, show me subgroup performance, show me the drift, who is harmed when the model is wrong. So really asking the right questions that prevents AI having a negative impact on people. And and I think these examples that, yeah, they happen because leaders didn't never ask those questions, or no one felt responsible. This is also what Yuri mentioned. So clear responsibility and asking the right questions. And here we also need a change in leadership and communication, because um, yeah, leaders need to really communicate transparently what the AI does, what it can't do, and how accountability works. And you can already see this. I mean, in models, seen in model cards, what really gives us an idea of what a model does and what it can't do. And this should be, expanded to a bigger to the specific use case. Then,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah. No,
this will make
thanks, Felicia.
sense. Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like no matter how progressive tools we're using, it always comes back to communication,
Yeah.
collaboration, decision making, taking responsibility, and being accountable for your decisions. It all comes to that, and it's definitely a leadership problem. It's a leadership challenge. It's not a technical challenge. And well, since you both, like Yuri and Felicia, you both mentioned decision making. Like Felicia, what do you think? How can you enable augmented decision making? Because obviously we ask AI to support us with decision making, and we do get some output that can help us with decision making. But how to make sure that it's actually humans who are making the final call? Like how to enable this augmented decision making?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are a couple of points. I think it's so important that whatever AI, whatever technology we use, that in the end it's a human that makes the decision or that is held accountable for it. So in high risk domains, so we can take again the example of the healthcare model. We should have checkpoints. So throughout um, the yeah, throughout the pipeline, human in the loop checkpoints, we should have decision logs, who made the decision with what input. So make it as transparent, document it, make it as transparent as possible. And in case so the humans, and I think this was also the case uh, in the Dutch case, where there were caseworkers that felt there was something wrong, but they didn't dare to challenge the system. So I mean, this is where where governance collapses, when staff really believes the the algorithm outranks any human judgment. I mean, it should always, AI is, and we see this a lot in healthcare and other domains, really performs well. Sometimes um, better or almost as good as humans, but it should never make um, the definite decision. And if the humans, the experts, domain experts in the field, have a yeah have a bad gut feeling, they should have the power or be empowered to really challenge and intervene in that case. So any especially in high risk or rights impacting cases like the Dutch case, we should have clear path to escalation in such cases. Yeah, so I think it shouldn't, AI shouldn't blur accountability. It should really still be clear, or even clearer, who's held accountable in
Yeah.
case things go wrong.
Yeah, just like very clear norms on who's making what decision, and how to escalate if you feel that something is wrong, and having this culture of escalation. Because we've seen like lots of examples of organizations, failures, like tragedies that happened just because people were too afraid to escalate, too afraid to ask questions. And with AI, yeah, that the risk is very high. So, Yuri, what can you add on decision making? I want to expand the question because decision making goes together with AI governance. So, what does it mean to build good AI governance? How would that look like, and how decision making goes with that?
Yeah, I was discussing this today on lunch with Georgia as well. Georgia is not here today, but the point again to me is that the velocity is one of the main features, but this velocity can work only if there is constant feedback, right? Because taking many decisions, even if we put the human in the loop, right? The point, as Felicia said, responsibilities need to be clear. When a decision is made, uh, it must be public. It must be that everybody knows who took that decision, and there's no AI in that decision, right? AI might help people in taking decisions, but at the same time, people are the responsible ones. And here, I think also the velocity goes hand in hand with the ability of people to ingest quality information, because again, AI is amazing at this. It can analyze lots of data, lots of information, oftentimes in real time, and spit out a statistical promising answer. But the human need to be in charge, right? We said that the responsibility is in the human, but if the human doesn't have enough information to take that decision wisely, how can they do that? How can they do it? They cannot, basically. So I think again that the point is we need to think about the way we give information to decision makers in the best way possible, with the best information possible, in the easiest and most digestible way possible. But this also exposes some risks, because who is making these decisions on how to show the information, what to prioritize? And you can try to delegate this to AI, but again, it's a risk, right? It's a risk. On the other hand, we really need to have responsibility on who is taking the decision. And third, after the decision, a fast feedback loop. So also who is taking the decision knows when the decision went good or bad, and can learn from its mistakes, as well as AI can, maybe, right? It's not really part of how generative AI works today, but we can implement some way uh, of improving the responses and the results based on previous examples, right? So um, I think these are the way to augment decision
Hmm.
making. But of course, it's a really open topic today. It's something I'm also really passionate about, and I still didn't find the definitive answer. Uh, but I really think that the real point here to become faster without being less efficient, because this fear that we have with this new technology that is changing responsibility, is costing money, and we don't know yet how much is the return on investments, and so many things. It it takes us away from the big picture, that this is a transformative technology. It's a general purpose technology that is, it's changing the world much, since 2010,
Yeah,
2008. It's changing the world in so many ways. Year after year is doing so, more intensively, and people need to adapt their decision making to this new thing that we have in the world.
yeah,
And we already had so many mistakes with the digital age, with the digital transformation, with the internet, and so many difficulties and so many things that needed to change, and so many new approaches that big companies are still not embracing. Right? We
I
had
agree. I agree.
the lean culture, the Scrum methods, and so forth, the agile methodology, and the big companies are pretending to do that, but they are really not.
Yeah,
And today the gap is growing, and this difference needs to be uh, reduced as much as possible,
agree. And I
because
like,
we are really fast. Startups are
yeah,
really fast.
I like what you said about the, like, leaders need to make decisions, but there's so many, like, so much information. Okay, someone needs to kind of prioritize those. Okay, and AI is definitely going to help us with that. So, like, how do we know where to use AI and where to use humans? But the also, like, the risk mitigator is the quick feedback loop. Like, if we
Yes.
introduce those feedback loops in decision making, and we can quickly can change things, and we monitor how it goes, like, it can mitigate the risks of wrong decision making for sure. And it's how we learn, actually. Yeah, we learn through trying something, making a mistake, and then, like, changing it when we see it's not working.
And what do
Well,
you think, Daria? What do you think?
oh,
Can
well,
I?
that's exactly what I think. I think it's all about. I
Okay.
love the conversation because from what I hear you saying, it's all about how we as humans interact with AI and with each other first. Like, how do
Yes.
we solve? How do we make sure there are no functional silos in organization that prevent us from collaboration? How do we make sure that we build a culture that
Yes.
promotes asking awkward and comfortable questions, and even, like, looking and searching for truth rather than supporting the previous ideas and what leaders had shared. So that's a really interesting conversation. We have about 2 minutes left, and I really, like, want to ask you one final question, and just give me a very brief response. How do you think leaders can build AI fluency? Like, you mentioned that it's not a technical thing. So, how leaders, non technical leaders, executive, CEO, CHRO, CMO, CPO, like all of those people, how they can build AI fluency? So, like, you read just a few sentences and then Felicia.
Yeah, I think we already responded to this, and Felicia did, I should say, because the point is making better questions, and this has always been a really fundamental skill. But today, with AI at our disposal, it's becoming the most important skill of all, because being able to create lists of questions, to divide your doubts in the sequence of questions, really changes your way into the information.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Felicia, what do you think?
Yeah, so yeah, again, I can summarize my points or repeat them. So AI leaders don't need to be technical, but and I think we agree on they need to be responsible, and I think they can do three main things. So first, as I've said, learn ask the right questions. In the case in the healthcare case from the beginning about proxies, fairness, drift, and impact it has on humans. Then what I also mentioned, they should build cross-functional teams where we have domain experts, we have compliance, and we have engineers who co-own the decisions. And then we need to create governance processes that catch problems early, even if the leaders don't understand the math behind it. So, and I think with enough curiosity and commitment to making technology serve people, we can and leaders can achieve that.
Cool, cool. And I'll share what I think is, well, I do agree. Asking the right questions, being curious, like creating those cross-functional teams is super critical. And what I've seen when with like what's the difference between teams who are using AI right and teams who go wrong with AI is that leaders are not trying to make all the decisions. They're not holding like everything to themselves. They are not a heroes who are saving or kind of moving and pushing it forward, but they are more like facilitators. They facilitate conversations and then encourage people to ask those questions. They don't have to ask all those questions by themselves. They need to make sure that those questions are asked. They need to make sure that there are certain rules and norms. And again, they don't have to create those rules and norms by themselves, but they need to facilitate this conversation so that team of people created those conversations and that they collaborate and work together. And it was important before, it is important now, it's going to be even more important with AI. And like you said, organizations are slowly learning with Scrum, Agile, digital transformation, now AI transformation. The process goes slow, but hopefully like organizations are changing to be more collaborative, more thinking, more curious. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. It is really interesting for me to hear your perspective. Thanks, Felicia, for sharing these stories because I didn't know about that. I mean, these are very incredible stories. And Yuri, thanks for sharing the story about Compass and again the history of how organizations are evolving and all your AI expertise and knowledge. And I'm looking forward to continue this conversation and having more lives with you and other colleagues of our AI Leaders Compass.
Thank you, Daria.
Thank you, Daria. Thanks for
Okay,
having us.
take care.